Hello, everyone. We are live. This is I am Richard Millett, the one and only, and this is the quarantine stream, the 42nd one. And now we will hear the ever beautiful, ever wonderful, ever lovely, ever green quarantine stream theme. Beautiful. This is from the new book. This is called Dance the Night Away. A blue wave sprayed gently onto the window. It remained an unfaded crescent reaching over the rooftop. Birds flew through untethered. Droplets yawned in sonorous applause. The shape succumbed, giving way by matching passing movements, as when water splashes in the sky. A maypole stands unraveled, while a sunfish kisses a butterfly. The fences were then a canvas, soaked tissue paper sprung over electrical wires, fragile forktails freshly shaven, as bronze tiger beetles glanced up at the heavens. Dance the night away! This is called Sympathy for the Cowboy. Sympathy for the cowboy, all alone on the range. After the war ended, he was forced to change his name. Sympathy for the cowboy holding his dying brother, who begged with his last breath, "Tell mother that I died with honor." Sympathy for the meth lab and all who fight in harm's way, who hope to abolish minimum wage and only charge $15 a day. Sympathy for modern times and those who argue they're right. Sympathy for the victim who already has all the laws on their side. Sympathy for the student who's only lived in theory, in a hammer and sickle t-shirt, walking away from the barricade. Sympathy for the lawsuit and all who fought for reform. Sympathy for the bumper sticker telling you to be reborn. Sympathy for the stallion running free and too wild to ride. Sympathy for the guy who tried. His wife cried, him and his foolish pride. Sympathy for the strawberry and the trial separations, press releases pleading for privacy, and of course doing it for the kids. Sympathy for the nihilist sucking on his cigarette, cutting you off in traffic, no constraints of guilt or regret. Sympathy for the stalker on his computer outside, looking at pictures of you in high school, saving each one even if it takes him all night. Sympathy for the cowboy, whose son moved off the ranch, said he might be coming back soon, if there's no change of plans. Y'all doing okay out there? We're going to do two in a row. We're going to do May, which is an old one, and we're going to do Fawn, which is a relatively newer one. It's from the last few years. actually, I take that back. We're going to do 3 in a row. We're going to do one that we haven't done in a very long time. It's been many years since we performed this one. This is The Ballad of Jenny, Part 1. And yes, there actually is a Part 2. But that's unreleased. She called up from a party after she'd been drinking all night. Said that she'd been raped, but that she liked the sensation. The listener concluded that she is a rape and went back to bed. She called back the next morning, but the machine picked it up. She was glad, though, because she didn't like talking to humans anyway. Get it together, get it yourself. The feelings you had linger for months. Under the ground, garden life albatross. She bleeds all over me. I say ball and chain in simple words. Idealization, affiliation, detoxification, menstruation. Dirt in the coffin, she's bleeding on the flower stems. Up in the air, salivating tissue. Under the ground, dirt on the nails, bleeding again. Extend a hand in loving help, but maybe you should just kill yourself. 2 brothers named Canary were said to have, this is Fawn, 2 brothers named Canary were said to have stolen from the community chest. They didn't have the decency to steal from the wealthy, take what they need, and give away the rest. But the law couldn't be trusted and thus were never called, so the Canaries were chastised and marched to the town walls. The locals hoped word would travel down the wire and that they'd be denied food, lodgings, and water wherever they retired. But quickly enough, the Canaries were forgotten and continued to ride along freely without judgment or punishment, and if they committed any further acts of thievery, it was never noted publicly. Griffith, resplendent in a natty navy suit, steals Jessica's champagne in a wrong-headed attempt to give it back later as a gift, thinking that she'll appreciate it more. Jessica, powerful yet delicate in a mellow peppermint pencil dress, rubs the bristle of Griffith's temples into his sweat and wonders how many texts he'll have to hide from her next. Griffith says he can break skin without bleeding. He dyes water blue before he drinks. He memorizes reviews, then skips to the end of the books that he reads. Jessica can get arrested and go straight home and spend the rest of her week yelling at strangers on the street and snapping reaction shots of the backs of their heads. Griffith is flummoxed as he's photographed exiting his favorite bar in the early morning, his mother's birthday on his mind, and a cigarette behind his ear. Jessica is photographed ironically flashing a peace sign on the beach, her mother's week-long visit thankfully now over. Griffith explains to his extended family the nature of his many public feuds and why they will persist, and bats away a leading question by their lawyer, disregarding being disproven by facts, feeling justified in thinking that the best way to reconcile a discrepancy is to attack. Jessica explains to the management at her company that discounting what could be considered her offensive language, the inherent truth of her statement still stood, though she was struck speechless when asked if she thought only her supporters were aware of her content. Or, as might have been dreamt in a different way, they made fun of the family name, an insult to the family name. Made fun of the family name, insult to the family name. According to her informants, a known opponent, unaware she was being recorded, made a remark the weight of which contradicted her previously stated stance, compromised her previously stated stance. Pablo floats in the ectoplasm, washed in the oils marked for his self-portrait. The prize fish. Fawn's teeth snap on water when her magnetic coiled alertness goes unrewarded. Setsuki states her ideas for posterity. The problem that I see is that they assume everyone who agrees with them about one thing agrees with them about everything. The problem that I see is that it's another version of corporate thinking, another way of being right-wing. The problem that I see is that they assume that I'll be a standard bearer. The problem that I see is that they are only willing to write their words in chalk. The problem that I see is that they limit me to things that I had no control over. The problem that I see is that their personal truth has no dialogue with honesty. Satsuki states ideas she would likely delete. I'll never be able to stop forcing emotions from myself. I'll never be able to be an eggshell. I'll never be able to be a pierced genital. I'll never be able to convince people. I saunter past the bar in JPEGs of 2003 like it means anything. I step over the bar and resurfaced insisting that sounds like a rhinestone. I ignore the bar and the people whose minds comprise the seventh circle. I shake my head at the bar, hoping to get my money from acquaintances for friendship services. Satsuki notes things that she's overheard. I try and fail and cannot help but hate the people who stay past closing and get distracted where there's a webcam on the wall, hoping no one saw you picking pepper out of your teeth, while thinking, oh, it's like modern art and this is being seen somewhere and I'm the subject in this moment, this ultimate moment. Take a drink, the gays. Take a drink, it's empowering. I wonder if I know them. Old movies to me are like Dream a Little Dream. I wouldn't watch anything older because I'd be bored and I wouldn't even know what they were talking about. This is called Sacrifice the Satellite. Moments before dawn, phone ringing, unable to suss if it was happening from impressions born in shallow sleep while neighbors flicked on lights in neighbors' windows. Or, as the drift sees me backed in, we were gun runners, trapped in a house, detained by police, threatened by rivals, but I was able to slither out a side door and snuck away to a cafe where I was supposed to summon assistance, but decided instead, to hell with them. I was called to a room. The walls of the hallway were blue, and when I entered, there they sat, looking exactly as they did in 1984. When one spoke, there was no sound from their mouths, but their words sank loudly in my skull. Crushed flowers float downstream in the rainwater, and homemade smokestacks drip steam on half-awake blades of grass. New nuns count the gray hairs of their predecessors as they scan old photographs. Will they question who's alive in heaven? Are their words papering a mountain? They will have a moment where they behold the beauty of an empty screen or an unplowed, snow-covered street. Lost in a world between are the souls who only dream when looking up. Thick, shimmering splotches of gray grease liquefy and start to drip down rust-colored walls of skins, watched by a babe with a flashbulb embedded in their wrist, who sits on gouged black and gold tiles in the center of a disused ballroom dance floor, among carelessly flung piles of metal-pronged monitors, cords, discs, spilled coffee grounds, broken vodka bottles, and asymmetrical platinum wigs. Every year there's a whisper that the inventory will get a clean transfer. Winston Dubois knew the recovered money was wrapped in a mosquito net and secured the back of a carriage. The horse stopped in front of an Air Force base, which got inadvertently captured on videotape, with the footage dissected by theorists for decades. Desmond Hampton learned Tony Chamberlain had double-crossed him as he drank milk and clapped erasers together outside his classroom. His signature had been forged and hidden throughout the system. The younger best brother thinks, if only I were a CEO buying companies whose names I don't know, and could leverage my credibility to simultaneously flaunt my status and champion myself as an obscurity. The older best brother thinks, if only I were an oligarch and had a tapestry of machinery to do what I want, live in seclusion, invest in rare art, and pay for a hooker who looks like my daughter. Lost in a world between are the souls who only dream when looking up. The beams of starshine light land everywhere and leave valley-wide fingerprints for 7 years. Minute glass tubes can shiver without bursting squid ink, and glistening diamonds laid out on linen, spirals scrawled on maps with the location leading inside a puzzle box, while fungus slides up to a microscope and mixes with vinegar and bleach. Circles of sapphires line the linoleum tile with a surface so improbably clear it mimics a screen. Lost in a world between are the souls who only dream when looking up. This is a new one that we're going to do. It's called Lazy Angels. Squat woman sealed in a shadow frock, trimmed in white absence of light, selling stories from her garden that she demands are heard but is greeted with the silence of the crowd's indifference. She doesn't already know that we can breathe and we can leave. She can't see that we already can walk through doors and open windows. Counterfeit profit steals the locks, illegal sun, zero as one. Selling pictures of her dinner her guards are obliged to buy, even as her art collection is vanishing until the walls have nothing left hanging. She doesn't already understand that we can perceive, that we can receive. She can't see that we can paint flowers with any colors we can imagine. Their far and distant minds are trails best left behind. Sister to her father stops the drain under a rotting stage, 6-month wage, selling reports carefully whispered, in hopes her wealthy relatives will let her sign their wills first. She doesn't already know that we are her, twice as much or more, a complete verse. She can't see the red and gold bird flying right above. She can't see that we are her, twice as much or more. She can't see that she hands her keys to a steed who gallops away into the orange rolling hills. Orange rolling hills. Orange rolling hills. Orange rolling hills. How are we doing out there? Okay. This is a one that uses some offensive language, but as I've said before, it is written in character. Pretty much all of this stuff is, and if you are offended by usage of a word, um, you have much bigger problems in life, and there are much bigger problems in the world. Usage does not equal endorsement, and I would hope that all of you would be intelligent enough to understand that, know and understand that, because I think it's a very basic concept. But some people are very touchy and have no ability to understand things. So unfortunately, you have to treat them like as if they are babies. At any rate, this is about freedom. This is called I Never Run Out of Money. He got in the car just to drive away. It was 80s night on the radio, and he felt his eyelids quiver from the thoughts left behind them. He always wanted to go out with one of the older kids, and he sped past her house to remind himself that the whole thing had not been fiction. He had to chew on tablets of ephedrine just to stay awake as he careened down a one-lane town. The clock read 2:14 a.m. Name another place where you don't have to worry about the cum on your coat from the guy in back of you on the bus, or the weekend in Boys Town where you lost all your money, where you can die for the 50 stars and still get reborn, where you can vomit on someone else's tonsils and still go home with them for the night, and you know that when you got a dime bag in your lap and you can drive the service entrance to paradise, it's not a privilege, it's a birthright. He was always fascinated by the kids a few years older who looked coked up by the age of 13. The news came from Washington. He had a fantasy that he kept kissing her on the forehead. Oliver North had been acquitted and Fawn Hall wasn't to blame, just like when they arrested Manuel Noriega because he wouldn't pay cash for the shipping costs of all his cocaine. He pulled into Super K and for some Coca-Cola and saluted the limp American flag on the way in. Rolling Stone had Bruce Springsteen on the cover and he felt like he had razor blades inside his stomach. Somehow everyone felt let down by the Gulf War. It wasn't as bloody as My Lai, it wasn't as funny as Grenada, and gooks weren't bombed in the process. The commodities and golden parachutes kept all the middle management well liquored up by the time the first Bush was giving his resignation speech. Voodoo economics and the crack epidemic sometimes made you wish that Nixon had been right all along, but this never seemed to bother him, and the national debt never meant shit to any decent citizens, especially not the kids who saw Heathers when it was still in the theaters. He got off his phone with one of his friends who complained that crack smoking was just a quote-unquote cheap ghetto high. The erythromycin was fucking up his liver, but at least it kept the acne off. He read a book about Charles Manson and figured the only difference between him and Nixon was a few years in jail and a copy of the White Album. Still, the thought of Squeaky or Sadie dressed in their black capes, creepy crawling into someone's house was still freaky enough to keep him sleeping out on the couch. That night he had a horrible dream. Eric Estrada was hosting a beauty pageant at the Playboy Mansion featuring categories like worst facelift and most fucked up tit job, but he couldn't walk away from the spectacle of it all. All he could do was to slug down a bottle of Thunderbird and cradle a hard-on while slobbering, "I do believe I'm ready for the Playboy Mansion! I want to see Hef! Open up those goddamn gates!" He woke up before the former First Lady wet t-shirt contest and ran to his car in horror. He flicked on the ignition and forced in a homemade tape, and while Everybody Wants to Rule the World leaked out, he thought about how much he hated those old political arguments he heard, that individuals are symptomatic of a sicker society. He came upon Super K, the great beacon for people who are lonely and cheap, and admired its neon beauty against the black backdropped sky. He was looking sideways and feeling sick about what was smothering up the rest of the land. Strip mall upon strip mall, grids and rows of anonymous stores. He thought about how all this used to be a beautiful, untouched virgin forest, and how disgusting it was that every developer bankrolled by the mafia was using their lunch hooks to get a portion of the profits. He felt his stomach tighten at the thought of another obese teen selling Swatch watches at the sunglasses. But then he turned his head forward, away from the strip mall, and saw nothing but outstretched lanes of tree branches and unpainted, barely paved roads. And he finally knew that he was getting ready to go home. Doing okay out there? Beautiful. This is, I've discussed this before, but this is theoretically, or on the surface, this is about the industrial complex, but it is in fact not about the military industrial complex whatsoever. What this is taking something that is largely an abuse of power and using it to speak about something that is something else that is basically an abuse of power. So, this is called Would You Sell the Relics? It's like using leukemia to talk about malaria. The general that only cares about tomorrow also expects everyone to echo the same expression. When the general can no longer see the power of their influence, they try and exert control over any small circumstances under their command, while the brigadier general worries to no one if they need a transfusion. The colonel, who's concerned that not enough people's fingerprints matches theirs, requires a warning on the front page of each report, along with a summary cut together by a subordinate in a matter of minutes, so they don't have to waste any energy generating any contradictory thoughts, while the captain enters their coordinates so their location is known and updated every single moment, which leaves the captain free to make discoveries like the wheel or gravity, then sell their findings to the executives or campaign staff of their choice, urged by a strong sense of benevolence, a tribute to charity as a force. And the first lieutenant's unmatched love of history is proven by the pictures taken of their parents with Goebbels in Brazil in the 70s. And the second lieutenant's jealousy shows and grouses to one, "That's not Goebbels, it's clear that it's Martin Bormann." The sergeant major that reset the standards of esprit de corps doesn't know the panic they'll feel a few short years later when they are urged out of the way, or that they'll become stiff with resentment and resolute in their calls for punishment and institute measures to monitor how the company behaves, while the staff sergeant writes on a photo of themselves, "The future belongs to you," and daydreams about collecting the remaining virginities from the sorority house down the road, and they already have the names, ages, and weights in a frequently updated database. Then the staff sergeant complains about commercials before content. The chief officer who breaks ranks to research the order the alphabet was created in gets rueful about seeing themselves age and attending charity events, funerals, and hospital visits, seeing their face in the mirror more washed out than before, wondering as they write their commencement address, who will even be paying attention in the audience, drinking from puddles, seeing what the sky says, not being able to read handwriting as children. And to the private, it's all an eye roll, and all so boring and shallow. To see another round of legacy shut out by an offhand remark, the private doesn't ask any of the officers where they should start. What's the matter where rebellion is kitsch and trauma is Walmart? The specialist greets the private. They each think that the other is a dilettante. And later the specialist considers, what's the matter where you have 1,000 followers and not a dozen supporters? Would you sell the relics? This is another new one. This is called Parallel Place. I live in a parallel place where the land is level, where the streets are bright in the evenings, and I know what tomorrow brings. I live in a parallel place where the wind is cold, where gray-haired men sweep the bandshell and foxes sleep under church bells. I hear the lank-haired women walking in the morning, their faces shaped by the sun. I live in a parallel place where there's endless electricity with very low voltage, where everyone dies of old age. I live in a parallel place where rain runs into a tunnel, where able-bodied women clear the gutters and dragonflies rise in a slow-motion flutter. I see the able-bodied men hauling fallen branches, their faces shaded by the sun. I live in a parallel place where people speak in peace, where the foreman's spouse greets the mailman in a see-through blouse. I live in a parallel place where the forest faces east, where contracts are written in invisible ink and codes are created with a wink. I see all the people breathing through the day, their faces graced by the sun. Blissful cardinals, blissful infants, blue reflections magnified 10,000 times, blue beams bouncing off aged lenses, radiant artifacts, radiant heirlooms, white sails blistered by the salty sun, white china stacked in cupboards, shining domes, shining necklaces, green feelings balanced on a yardstick, green parchment weighted down by grapes. This is from a book I did in 2019. This is called The Vatican Vaults. Shelves lined with caskets, ripe fruit piled in baskets. Sugar cubes and teacups rattle as saucers are dragged across tablecloths. Outside, a crowd sits murmuring. A harmonium coughs discordantly off the spokes of a bicycle wheel, and snakeskin is carefully wrapped around palms. Two men each wear a veil, one off mauve, the other pink lady red. Gravel sits at the bottom of stained glass vials, and mink pelts are smoothed out over the tiles. Three elderly spinsters raise their voices in praise, their weathered hands shaking at the sky. Gold medals tied around their waists reflect the sun directly into children's eyes. Four blind beggars fool the crowd into believing they're brothers who compete by tying knots and rope faster than any comers, the act only ending at dusk when they split their spoils. Stars roll around the moon back and forth from end to end. Clouds erase them away each day when the new day begins. Slightly fucked that up at the end. Oh well. What are you gonna do? This is an older one. This is this is it's called Microwave Blues. Why would you want to burn down your house and pretend it doesn't exist? The cliche about house and home, and neither one is your own. It's a waste of time to spend your life deconstructing why you're bored and you can't find the beauty in traffic signs, committing a felony when you find out your belongings have been repossessed. When I heard what was said, I didn't even want a personality. It's even worse than reading Victorian erotica. Scrambled eggs for breakfast and the nonsense front page, enough to make a man one step past cynical, or at least weird enough to make his day job seem sensible. Why do you want to burn down your house, even though I've been told that you kiss like a blood clot? There's got to be something at the end of the night to keep you waking up the next morning. The lighted sign of Texaco and the plastic Jesus in the hallway. There's a moral to every story, even if you spend half your time figuring out what it is. An echo of light nearly blind. Somewhere in the back of your hindsight is an inkling of communication that says you want to be in control. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that, except if you get in anyone's way. Because you, like me or anyone else, doesn't mind criticism as long as they're being hailed as a genius by some kind of socialite they usually refer to as a friend. This is another newer one. It's called Windy Sequins. Through the missing bricks, you can see a banquet table with a candelabra crooked from water-falling wax. On the other side of the missing bricks is a tablecloth with faintly gray cloth stains left by mourning doves. Through the missing bricks is a banquet table heaving with indentations from apples, persimmons, cantaloupes, and pears. On the other side of the missing bricks, there is a deer walking in the distance while the finger painting floats to the ground. Through the missing bricks, there is a banquet table with unopened telegrams and sturdy silver trays stacked with books about the Enlightenment. On the other side of the missing bricks, there is a pebble garden placed on a tree branch next to a mortar and pestle. Through the missing bricks, there is a banquet table lined along the bottom right edge with bowls of cold dandelion soup. Seated 45 degrees away from the banquet table is a man with a salt and pepper waxed mustache humming waltzes and complaining about the distortions of sounds and colors. 110 years old, and he doesn't know that electric blue can be beautiful too. This next one is also an older one. This is called Moonlight and a Dirty Tea Bag. I spend my time in theaters, and when I get home at night, the plasma in my blood always pounds too fast, and the broken overhead lights can predict what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah, the night shows off your real feelings. The streets are chipped and cornered. There's a punk rock kid with black-lit spiked hair, and a lonely mechanic who tries to hug his customers, or something like that. The cops always fly past, oblivious to it all. We happened to hook up by chance. She was snake dancing through some guy's shirt. Our conversation had something to do with the Renaissance, but to be honest, I can hardly remember. So we went back to her place. Her skin turned the color of a Dalmatian, and as she laughed at me while I started talking too much. There were whistling monks in the corner wearing crowns of jewels, and I tried to play the straight man amongst all the cacophony. She took my hand and told me that it was all right. And when we got on board the satellite, she sang folk songs all the way to Mars. She took my hand and promised me it was all right. And when we got on board the satellite, she sang folk songs all the way to Mars. Oh, come on. Jesus, man. God damn. It's taking bloody forever. Shouldn't be that hard. What are we doing out there? Doing okay? Okay, beautiful. This is called Everyone. Too late in the evening, 7:45. That man around the corner lost his ring in a fight. Here comes St. Thomas walking through the door, found himself an auction, bought everything on the floor. I don't wake up too early, I don't cut my face, I don't call any strangers, and I don't go looking for their fucking graves. Everyone gets half of what they want and half of what they don't. Half of what they couldn't and half of what they won't. Pork chops in the kitchen above the sink, there's a light. No milk on the table for the blink of an eye. Up the road is a driveway where they come out paid. Yeah, they come out smiling, dead cats in their way. Everyone gets half of what they want and half of what they don't. Half of what they couldn't and half of what they won't. This is Jesus. This is from Trace the Venom Signal. It's called Slow Boat to China. The razor's skin fell on the seat. The roof had been gouged out by a key. The exits were guarded. A few numbers written down, all typed out in a foreign language, all of which was the product of inflation. The casino slot machines paid out with surf music in a 20-minute ring. The plumber knocked on the last room of the far wing and was tipped with uneaten meat. I keep trying to leave, but I only get more inside. I made it out of the garage only to be stuck behind a foreigner with $1,000 hubcaps on a $50 car. A girl climbed up the mic, and before she got numb, asked them how they could stand the climate. She was from California, never was snowed on, didn't get stopped by trains. 25 miles to 5 miles, then down to 15, then down to 10, then down to 30, then down to 25, then down to 20, then down to 15, then down to 10, then down to 2, then down to 1, ranging from dour to catatonic to irate. Can't tell a building from a train. Everyone drives through except for me, though. I stopped the frame. I took the wrong exit, driving into the marching band display, and wrote my senator complaining to his face. He wrote back saying, "Yes, son, it's about time we did things your way. Everybody's an altar boy, looking for a lampshade to make straight, some Sunday spending money, a free robe, a thimble out of the river, because they got the chance to make their case. Trees go faster in the city, according to the study. The nutrients depleted my body. No electricity is going to open that door. Ice is slow and not enough to keep my attention. My attention." Everyone acting like an altar boy, dragging their disagreements into the street, stopped, slow and coy, using their vestments for sheets. A few quick turns and pleas for a reward, but the holding cell is empty, and I certainly don't choose to open it today. I paid to replace the battery and canceled my appointments. The dentist charged me a late fee. The neighbor watched his lawn instead of TV, and here's the moral of the story. I put my dinner in a glass, filled it with water, drank half, and left the rest. I threw in some safety pins to see how fast they'd rust, and after 6 months, there were still no results. It's called Canary Milk. Sweltering sun in the forecast, but it's raining right now. Retired teens nostalgic for holograms as their granddads watch rocks roll on the ground and wonder when they can be farmers in glass pods on Mars. While Amanda eats factory fresh candies and laughs jaggedly at vulgar stories. The boy who awoke in the toy aisle one evening moved more elegantly than his mother had ever seen as he picked items off a worn, well-folded list before deciding he'd rather have a pet eel instead, while Amanda watches her neighbors bickering and daydreams deleted scenes from their past. The delivery man is ready for the weekend as he ignores reports on the European heat wave, instead marveling about how much the new house on his route must cost each month to keep the swans fed and the water in the lagoon fresh, while Amanda feels no urgency to call back her agency and laughs at people voluntarily photographing their chores. This is a newer one. This is called 3% Profit. Actually, I'm sorry, we aren't going to do 3% Profit. We're doing that next week. Sorry. This is Should I Go In? The silver peppermill whispers to the hammer that she's an airport. And though she never really shows anybody, I still know that she's an airport. If you stop at her coffee shop, she'll charge you extra for a plastic top. The well-water ice cubes have heard this before, but she's an airport. A zebra's chewing gum can confirm the reports that she's an airport. If you take off your shoes after the security stop, she'll throw them in the air and they'll land in the baggage cart. Run down the runway to the center of the day where the sun is pointing to the ground. Reach all the way down to touch your toes and remember a story you'll want to pass along someday. Run down the runway into the center of the day where the sun is pointing to the ground. Reach all the way down to touch your toes and remember a story you'll want to pass along someday. She's an airport and her father is a farm filled with corn stalks. Her mother is a candy factory spinning reflective baubles. She's an airport and her father is a farm filled with corn stalks. Her mother is a candy factory spinning reflective baubles. If I could implicate, if I could talk to you, I will some more. And just like in today's world of opinion and denunciation and admirable like in pictures and friendliness and outward inliness, maybe I'm on the thrust of that. She dreamed she was a train draped in robin's egg lace. She couldn't keep still in one place. She dreamed she was the only train running on the 4th of July, filled with whipped cream to burst and streamers to fly. She dreamed she was a train running past the impound lot, and after every platform on the route, she'd whisper, I still love Phil. To know him is to love him. She was sad when they closed the gates at night. To know him through his art was the most profound way to know him. She dreamed she was a train filled with die-cast metal engines and cowboy hats, ordered by the civil rights workers' favorite daughter. She dreamed she was a train, and her earrings were flashing orange lights. She waved hello to the one car she'd stopped at the tiny suburban crossing, a train to get the tracks loose and rattling. Rattling tracks reminds her of those aunts and uncles talking over each other at her grandma's birthday. Rattling tracks reminds her of those aunts and uncles, their dentures barely hanging in their mouths, clicking and clacking slowly, typewriter sounds as they argue about the cost of produce, clicking and clacking and making sounds as they try to keep their dentures in place while still speaking over each other during her grandmother's birthday. 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 Birthday! This is from a book from a few years ago. This is called Cheltenham Girl. Excuse me. Like a cloud, beautiful sound standing before the signal. When the light shines on the ground, it reflects off the wheel. Parking lot next to the short building on the edge of the desert. She sees it's harder to be a number when you're starting out as a visitor. Cheltenham Girl. Clouds can't create the shapes they make or hold on to any rain, precious, temporary, holding no domain. No machines, no cell phone or computers, clicking through broken links. Credit card, social security needed. She will refuse to register. Cheltenham Girl. Every day, another wish, another mile. Closer to the point where I can portray it. Until then, all I'll do is sing to her spirit. And she will return. This is called I'm Dancing with the Skeleton Key. I'm dancing with the skeleton key pinned under my belt the night after I'd had two simultaneous dreams in ocular split screen, one where a white-tailed fawn galloped to the front door and another where my brother couldn't sleep. I'm dancing with the skeleton key tied on a twine cord around my neck, remembering when my sister was locked in a minivan and stranded in a parking lot outside of Austin. She kissed the windows and ate the tape left in the cassette deck. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in my unopened mouth, tucked behind my wisdom teeth and obscured by my tongue. I have memories that my sister still won't believe, and I wish I could edit the 20th century. It could have all been done so much better. I'm dancing with the skeleton key scotch taped to my arm. When I was in school, the vice principal gave himself a heart condition, trying to figure out who had stolen from the convenience store and then boasted about it on the blackboard. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in the grotto of a dilapidated Catholic church, where the priest once confessed to me that after each funeral he performed, the only way he could raise his spirits was by making uneasy music with the organist. I'm dancing with the skeleton key, concealed in an alley while bells chime at midnight near the railroad and kids with no curfew dodge between dashing headlights on their way to play hide-and-seek in the park. I'm dancing with the skeleton key laid on the floor of a garage while my brother draws out diagrams on poster boards, connecting lines from consequences of thoughts to isolated islands of thinking, divided by unintended regressions of actions. I'm dancing with the skeleton key while I am safe at home, looking at sealed bags of clothes that I stopped wearing years ago while I was running for mayor on an unconfirmed platform of leaking information about the governor. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in an adjacent office because the evidence my brother uncovered just got delivered to the lawyer, and he predicts that it will make the judge jump and remove any condemnation from his mouth. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in a strip mall that used to be a swimming pool, and before that a man-made hill that covered demilitarized waste trucked over from a Floridian base, and it will still take 100,000 years before any of this reaches its half-life. I'm dancing with the skeleton key clasped tightly in my hand as I watch my sister in the mirror speak sentences using only one word and plant orchids next to power lines in the backyard. Then she dots the driveway with empty jars to accurately measure the rainfall. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in my pocket, moving loosely with me. My brother used to cry bitterly to our parents every time he got a ticket, refuting each offense, denying that he had done any of it. I'm dancing with the skeleton key sliding uncomfortably in my shoe, but the nuisance helps gives me the presence of mind to always hold up what I was taught, that when the rent is due, it's better to be full and well slept than to just hand over a blank check. I'm dancing with the skeleton key pressed into a book, watching leaves in the wind, and a novelist at a press conference performing fake sign language, hoping it will get him the attention he wants for trying to revive the printed word. This is a pretty old one. I wrote this when I was just a teenager. I think I just turned 18. This is called Epileptical Illusion. I have a syntax error, frolicking banshee. Let's start over. I have a syntax error, frolicking banshee beast that won't leave me alone when I'm sleeping, when I'm eating, when I'm oblivioned, like a cloud conforming to the heat. I have a syntax error that gnaws my blood cells and steals my fire. Swing distilling and apoplexic, shaking, flat-earthed and triangle-hipped, withdrawn, postponed, and resequenced. I have a syntax error stolen from my programs, the lethargic constraints, laughing at my fits, calculating slits of immortality, wrapping iron-lunged wings beyond the point of computation, boiling plasmatic revelation. I have a syntax error that cackles like a spitfly at every ounce of acne that belongs to my frame, cajoling the frenzy, consoling the dichotomy, cluttering the dirge into cellophane equivalency and carefully crafted objectivity. I have a syntax error that justifies everything I want, that tells me what to do, that tells me there's sincerity to prove, that opens up my stomach when I'm dreaming and it fantasizes about infecting my acrylic soul. I have a syntax error, galloping malapropism, grafting its image inside beside me, laughing insidiously all around me, speaking in tongues until I don't know what to say. I have syntax error, spine-charred perpendicular presence of constricted paranoia that captivates my logic and obstructs my magnetically pollinated points of progression. I have syntax error that doesn't breathe, that doesn't bleed, but gravitates in parallel lines from heart to head, producing a gelatinous strain of indecisiveness, forgetting the trains of time and the tracks of my mind. I have a syntax error that doesn't want to leave, that nightmares my DNA, that I'm slowly peeling away before I fall prey to its fangs, and I'm nothing but a machine with a syntax error. This is from Salt or Light, which it's weird to think this is going to be turning 5 years old soon. This is called White Cello. Take the white envelope next to your right hand. Give it to me. Here, lick the seal. Then talk to me. I'm in the open window. I'm not in time, but I've got your watch, and I need to learn to play this white cello. Scratch the surface. I'm on the shore with a can of sugar. It's never bitter. I'd really rather be playing, though, because I like the white strings and the white bow. That's not her. That's her was the simplest thing you said today. I'm still reeling with no moments except now. You don't possess any microscope, so instead I will take the telescope. I'm trying to be angelic, which isn't easy after getting desensitized with disappointments, every night eating fresh vegetables, but planning, you already know, and then you talk me out of it. You don't have a pistol in your waistcoat, your teeth aren't flecked with flax seeds, my misjudgments are my own, and most are unknown, and just because I'm a pacifist doesn't mean I'll let any motherfucker just abuse me. And speaking of myself, notice me. I'm standing next to the tree where the guy crashed the stolen car, then got out and ran for it. But I can behave for over 100 days, and I've squandered my efforts and so much goodwill that I sometimes still need to convince myself that I should try to take lessons to play at all. But I'm sure that you want me to, and I know what I can do. And with that, we're not missing anything. We're humming songs through the phone. We're holy rollers without a religion. We're midnight movers. No, we're not. And don't be the guy on the bike in the right lane racing for his life against rush hour traffic in the morning. I know you are, and you know that I care, and I feel like I'm Clark Kent, all dressed up in primary colors, and I just haven't taken off my glasses yet. She said to me, as long as it's not evil, and I said to her, I cannot be evil, certainly not right now, but it's the rising sun, it's a hard-boiled egg, it's basil, it's a blue charm. I just want to play the white cello, I just want to sit in a circle and think about it some more. So we're going to wrap this up, or are we going to test people's patience? No, I'm thinking out loud. It's warm communication. See, that's what I'm talking about. So instead, we're going to change some channels. Quarters, dimes, and nickels, and all sunbathers must be wearing a blue suit. Go to the slants and cut off your slants. It'll be like a reverse safari where they put lions, cheetahs, and tigers in a truck and drive around and show them people shopping and walking down the street or pumping gas. It'll be the apex of manifestation. It won't be something that's in the Bible, but it'll be like the Bible. Or it'll be a suburban safari where some guy named Greg gives you a little pith helmet and plastic binoculars, and you can wait under his kitchen table for the cat to use the litter box. But why does it gotta be white? Never heard from before. Advertising space available. Clean, clear water. And of course, the tastiest tomatoes. This is another new one. This is one I'm very fond of. This is called Investigating Mitsy. Any second now. She rides around the merry-go-round wearing satin slippers, chewing pink peppercorns. Her eyes are a miracle in the way they paint names in the minds of rain clouds. The lightning reaches out to introduce itself. The Queen of Atlantis draws filigree for the king while he's taking his bath. Bristling lips kiss the teeth of the key ring and lick ankles in math. She holds a bouquet of clarinets, wearing a lavender herringbone robe and nodding at buckets of soap. Her elbows hold her weight on the sand dune decorated with still wet seashells and teacups half filled with a treacle she pours onto tree roots. The Queen of Atlantis plans where the French and English will meet. The king eats suckling pig and excites the court over soaking his feet. called Diamond Mine. Water rushing so fast it looks like knotted wood. Its sound is ceaseless, perpetual crash and static, blue and black. Droplets burst over the plank sides and dot the dirt or land down kicked-out bricks, and from the ravine's opposite angle, the water seems to glide clockwise, rolling ever nearer toward the gears and into the factory where 7 years previous the core of the industry sunk unexpectedly early, and like a defense attorney the treasurer ruled the materials used were archaic and their methods unrealistic, and as demand seized up the foreman and night shift technicians acidly joked they were laboring within the Great Repression. For ages it seemed like the beams from the afternoon sun wouldn't come, but we later learned the view was obscured by a flood started from the diamond mine. We know it's either tacitly implied or we're told outright. You can't be seen like that. You need lights. When money is exchanged and you're finally responsible and realistic, you can't be seen like that. You need lights. Know the value of being articulate and reconsider your obscure subject. You need to stay in the lines. You need to revise. Realize the need to eliminate images that would be unwise to present or ideas you'd be unable to defend. Why persist if honest people cannot implicitly understand? You can't be seen like that. You need lights. For years it seemed like the beams from the afternoon sun wouldn't come, but we later learned the view was obscured from a flood that started in the diamond mine. Back in the head office, on the desk next to the coffee, scissors, and gold pen set was a black leather envelope in that morning's newspaper whose subheadline read, "Forget Forgetfulness," and detailed a local photographer who makes elaborate, enormous near-twin gelatin prints of events, one real, one staged, and described the effect as painting over paintings. When asked by the reporter, "Who will get this?" the photographer remarked, "Anyone who misses being pure or ever imagined placing one point in time over another, anyone who pictures the shape of ideas and not the shape of their mind, anyone who sees a crowd and tries to find the people in disguise." Later, the paper lay open to the crossword puzzle, and among answers written in indeterminate script were asides like, "Does purpose follow appearance? Where is this from? Reasons better than because." And finally, determining what to become. And now we are going to... This is our final piece of the night. Called Rubber Buttons. Any second now. It needs to be kept simmering, and the time should flow slowly and quietly. Let's go. My shoelaces are undone, which means someone likes me as much as I love to see a basket of swimming snowflakes. My shoelaces are undone, so I throw them next to a trunk of styrofoam tongues, and the person who brought them yells, "Thank you." The first person in the castle has the obvious advantage if they wish to scrape their fingernails against century-old windows. They can concentrate vacantly while being unfailingly polite at insisting their hands are made of the same sand as found outside on the beach. They know there is no joy in failure for their friends, and that the fun in restoration happens once the work is done. The second person in the castle has obvious ease with boldly seizing treasure. Only they can see through a fizzing camera lens. They can research quietly while having no qualms about their ambition outstripping their abilities in assessing gaudy antiques. They know there is no lemon rich enough in sourness to let their taste get challenged into swallowing insects in soiled tents. The third person in the castle has the obvious edge when turning their profile to face the east end in hopes of repairing a table leg. They can dutifully saw and sweep the dust into the bin until the bell sounds for them to begin slicing vegetables in the kitchen. They know there is no creek deep enough to keep them from molding jellies into a series of perfectly semi-translucent wedges. I want brass buttons for my cousin. Because I could not count for cufflinks, they counted for me. Because I could not look for light bulbs, they looked for me. Because I could not dance for diamonds, they danced for me. They realized the chateau has the clear advantage as the place to evaluate flashy antiques. I want brass buttons for my cousin, but I make rubber buttons to wear for myself. While I sew, I look at the library and remember each of my most memorable finds. I want brass buttons for my cousin, but I make the rubber buttons I wear on my jacket. I buy the materials from the tan-toothed man who sold my mom a gold wishing box. I want brass buttons for my cousin, because when I preach with the collar, it preaches with me. I want brass buttons for my cousin, because when I move with the minnows, they move with me. They realize the chateau has the clear advantage when you're evaluating flashy antiques. Let's go! That's all right. My shoelaces are undone, so I only walk sideways and photograph a plum purple terracotta planet with a flag with a price tag sticking out of it. Oh, it's hard to know. My shoelaces are undone, which means someone likes me as much as I love wearing an apricot ascot while hearing stories about Korean camping sites. The first person in the tower can brighten their senses by energetically exchanging sunglasses and hairstyles, one safely ensconced up at the top. They can cheerfully sing along with anything, though they prefer Caruso and ragtime songs they don't know. There is usually a fixed point in the distance for them to focus on, things such as a helicopter or hawk taking off shortly after dawn. The second person in the tower can loudly shout, "How I love my girl!" which echoes back so overwhelmingly they can think that they're in a private booth. They can detect the scent of her shampoo in the wind and look down to see her looking up and running towards them. There is normally an iron staircase nailed in 40 years ago, which serves as the one modern addition to the edifice. The third person in the tower can tell endless jokes over dinner about the rabbits they saw nipping chocolate from their mother's open purses. They can wear a lei around their necks, which contrasts sharply with their pinstripe sport coat and tartan flat cap. There is always a sauna where they can fall asleep underneath a slippery painting of their father all dressed up as a captain. My shoelaces are undone. They lay under the warmth of the sun. This is a true depiction, recited with excellent diction. Let's go! And now I recall other memories from walking around the castle, the humidity kept at bay, clouds letting only loose hints of rain, and vines intertwining across each other, and each new flower that blooms another gift for the dozens of bees in love with the newness of June. It's all on top of my eyes. The curious sage in an orange and brown dashiki, standing before a statue of the stripped Christ, arms open and hovering. All on top of my eyes, lithium batteries in between her teeth. She holds a screwdriver dipped in green paint as she walks over underground cables. all on top of my eyes, in between her toes. She staves off headaches with gallons of water and sleeping when she can. All on top of my eyes. The swells of excitement are just one continued drone. Close concert of ideas, stretching fingers. You did a great job today. Devoted, seriously, all on top of my eyes. One wonder, one today. And that, folks, is another exciting edition of the quarantine stream. We hope that you've had a wonderful time. I certainly have. This is always something pretty glorious. By the grace of God, we will be back next week. Otherwise, until then, stay safe. Double mask. Stay smart. And stay free, because you already are. Yes. And we will now hear the quarantine stream theme once again. Beautiful. All right, everyone. Until next time, by the grace of God, we will be back next week. Until then, thank you for watching. Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Good night, everyone.